All right, so you're gearing up for the CySA Plus exam, and you know vulnerability response is a huge piece of the puzzle. Well, in this explainer, we're going to cut right through all the noise and focus on exactly what you need to nail this section on exam day. Let's get right into it.
Our main goal here is pretty simple: to take these key concepts and make sure they stick so you can actually use them when it counts. We're going to start with the basic language of risk. Then we'll get into the numbers and how to calculate it, and we'll wrap up with secure software development. Just think of this as your roadmap for mastering this domain. Let's dive in.
Okay, first things first, we have to be speaking the same language. And trust me, the CSIA Plus exam will absolutely test you on the fundamental building blocks of risk. Getting these definitions down cold isn't just a good idea. It's your first real step to success.
Now, this right here is a core concept for the exam, so really let it sink in. You cannot have risk without both a threat and a vulnerability. A threat is what could happen, right? And a vulnerability is how it could happen. It's only where those two things overlap that you have a real, actual risk to worry about.
Let's make this crystal clear. A threat is the potential for harm. Think of something like a brute force attack. The vulnerability is the weakness that lets that threat in, like an unlocked server port. Here's the key takeaway. You can totally have a vulnerability without a threat, and you can have a threat without a vulnerability. It's the combination that creates the risk, and you can bet the exam is going to give you scenarios to test you on exactly that.
So, now that we know what risk is, it's time to put a number on it. This is where we get into what's called quantitative risk assessment. This is a super critical skill, and it's a heavily weighted topic on the CSA Plus. We're about to turn these abstract ideas into cold, hard cash figures.
These 5 acronyms, they're non-negotiable. You have to know them. Asset value, or AV, is just what something is worth. The exposure factor, EF, is the percentage of that value you'd lose if something bad happened. SLE, single loss expectancy, is the total dollar loss for one single incident. ARO, the annualized rate of occurrence, is how many times you expect this to happen in a year. And that brings us to the big one, ALE, the annualized loss expectancy, which is your total expected loss per year from this risk. Seriously, burn these into your brain.
All right, let's put these terms to work with a classic CySA Plus style scenario. You've got an asset, you've got a value, and you've got a probability. So before I show you the math, just take a second. How would you calculate the financial risk here?
Okay, here's how it's done. First, we figure out the SLE. We multiply the asset value by the exposure factor. In this case, that's $500,000 times 100%, since all the data would be lost. So our SLE is 500 grand. Easy enough. Then, to get the ALE, we just multiply that SLE by the annualized rate of occurrence. So, 500,000 times 0.05, and that gives us an ALE of $25,000 per year. And that is the number you take to management to justify spending money on security controls. So, you've identified a risk, and you've even put a dollar amount on it. Great. Now what? What do you actually do about it? Well, as a CySA Plus certified analyst, you have to know the 4 main ways an organization can respond. Think of this as your risk management playbook.
And here they are: mitigation, avoidance, transference, and acceptance. I can almost guarantee you'll get scenario questions on the exam where you have to pick which of these 4 strategies is being used. So let's quickly break each one down. Mitigation is the one you're going to see most often. This is where you roll up your sleeves and you actually do something to fix the problem. You implement firewalls, you apply patches, you enforce multi-factor authentication, anything that makes the risk less likely to happen or less damaging if it does.
Avoidance is kind of like the nuclear option. You're not just trying to fix the risk, you're getting rid of the business activity that creates it in the first place. For example, if rolling out a new app feature is proving way too risky, you might just scrap the feature entirely. Poof, the risk is gone. But, of course, so is any potential reward from that feature.
Now, with transference, the risk doesn't go away. It's still there. But what you're doing is shifting the financial fallout to someone else. The absolute classic example of this is buying a cybersecurity insurance policy. If you get hit with a data breach, the insurance company is the one paying for the cleanup. You've transferred the financial impact.
And finally, there's acceptance. And this is important. This isn't just ignoring a problem and hoping it goes away. No, it's a conscious, calculated business decision. It's where you've analyzed a risk and decided that, you know what? The cost to fix it is actually more than the potential loss. So you document it, and you accept that it might happen.
And hey, if you're still not convinced this stuff is important, here's a direct quote, an exam note from the official study guide. CompTIA is literally telling you, in no uncertain terms, that you will be tested on these 4 strategies. You've got to know them inside and out.
Okay, so we've covered how to respond to vulnerabilities. Now let's switch gears and talk about where a lot of them come from in the first place, software development. The CySA Plus exam fully expects you to know how to build security in from the very beginning. So let's quickly look at the different development models you'll need to know. First up, we have the waterfall model. This is kind of the granddaddy of them all. It's a very linear, sequential approach. You have to complete one entire phase before you can even start the next one. Now, the big problem from a security point of view is that testing usually happens way at the very end, and that makes it incredibly difficult and expensive to fix any vulnerabilities you find. The spiral model is a definite step up from waterfall. It's an iterative model, which just means you go through the development cycle over and over again in smaller loops. But the key difference here is that each one of those loops includes a risk analysis phase. So security is actually baked into the process right from the start. And finally, we have Agile, which is pretty much the dominant methodology you'll see today. It is all about speed and flexibility. Work gets done in these short, rapid cycles called sprints. The big challenge here for us security folks is that security has to keep up with that insane pace. If you're not careful, it's really easy for security to get overlooked. So how do we actually test the code in these models? You absolutely have to know these 3 methods. Static analysis is when you look at the raw source code for potential flaws without ever running it. Dynamic analysis is the opposite. You actually run the code, and you poke at it, you interact with it to see what breaks. And fuzzing is a type of dynamic testing where you just throw tons of random, weird, malformed data at an application to see if you can make it crash or do something unexpected. All right, you've made it this far, so you know what that means. It's time for a lightning round. I've got a couple of practice questions for you, pulled right from the kinds of things you'll see on the exam. Let's test what you've learned. You ready? Okay, first question. What do you call that formal process for inviting ethical hackers to find vulnerabilities in exchange for a reward? Take a second, think about it. And the correct answer is C, bug bounty. These programs are a total win-win. Companies get their systems tested by all sorts of different experts, and the ethical hackers get paid and recognized for their skills. Next one up. Which of these testing methods involves actually running the application? I bet you know this one. Yep, the answer is B, dynamic analysis. Just remember, dynamic means the code is in motion, it's running. Static means it's at rest, just sitting there. It's a simple distinction, but it's an absolutely crucial one for the exam. Wow, we have covered a ton of ground today, from the absolute fundamentals of risk all the way to the nitty-gritty of secure development. The final step, really, is for you to apply this knowledge. So think about it. How can you use this framework to better prioritize risks in your own job, or even just in your studies? Keep practicing these concepts, and you'll be well on your way to acing that CySA Plus exam. Good luck.